Welcome, everyone. We are live with another episode of Level Up Law, where every Tuesday at noon here at South Carolina Legal Services, we're leveling up your legal knowledge about an area of law that we practice in, or we're letting you know what some of our partners are doing out there in the legal world. I'm Senior Staff Attorney Susan Ingalls. I'm here with our producer, Kenneth Elliott, of course, as always, and you're viewing Deborah Friel-Myhall, who is the Program Director for the South Carolina Justice Navigators Network. Deb has been a social worker in Charleston here in South Carolina for 24 years, beginning her professional career working for attorneys and initially, I think, during college and then later with them as colleagues. So that's really great. And I know, Deb, that you worked in psychiatric crisis management with trauma survivors and people with chronic mental illnesses. And then, of course, working for 18 years in higher education, working with students with disabilities and advocating for their civil rights. So all of that is a great background, I think, for what you're doing now. And I'd like to, before we get started, with your presentation, which we're looking forward to, I do want to remind our audience, both live and on the replay, that there's not going to be any legal advice today. This is just general information for the public. If you do need the help of a lawyer, you can call our intake line here at South Carolina Legal Services or apply online, and all that information will be provided at the end of today's presentation. Also, as a reminder, Kenneth Elliott, our producer, uploads all of our episodes to our YouTube channel on the Level Up Law playlist, so you can always find any of our previous episodes there, including this one. Now, Deb has agreed to answer some general questions if there's time at the conclusion of the presentation, so if you do have any questions, be sure and put them there in the question box. And one quick plug, for the QR code that you see on your screen. We do have a newsletter we'd love for you to sign up for. So just scan that QR code and you'll be taken to a form. We can sign up for the newsletter, but you can also sign up if you're interested in hearing about our other legal resources in addition to Level Up Law. And also, of course, if you want to make a donation to our nonprofit, that is available there as well. Now, if you would like to suggest a topic idea for us, there's another QR code, and you can check that out right now on your screen. Just scan that, and you'll go to a form where you can say, hey, I'd like to hear about balloon payments on mortgages. Can you do an episode about that? Or, you know, that any kind of topic that you'd like to hear about, we're always glad to hear from you there in our audience. So before we move on, I just want to thank again Deborah Myhall for joining us today. And Deb, take it away.
All right, well, thanks, Susan. And thank you so much to South Carolina Legal Services for inviting me to speak to you all today. South Carolina Justice Navigators Network, or SCJNN for short. All right, at the Justice Navigators Network, we believe that building the capacity of trusted community support providers to become justice navigators is a path to equal justice under law. Okay, so let me first tell you about the organizations behind this work. The South Carolina Justice Navigators Network is a project of the Justice Lab at Georgetown Law in partnership with Charleston Legal Access, Charleston Pro Bono Legal Services, and Legal Link. We also work very closely with the South Carolina Access to Justice Commission. Okay, and just a little bit more about each of those organizations. Some of you may already be familiar with Charleston Legal Access, or CLA, which fills a clear void in the legal community as South Carolina's only nonprofit sliding scale law firm dedicated to expanding access to legal services in the Low Country. They provide affordable and quality legal representation to families with low to moderate incomes who don't qualify for free legal aid but cannot afford a private attorney, and engage in projects to expand access to justice in South Carolina, which is how they came to work to make the South Carolina Justice Navigators Network happen. Another partner is Charleston Pro Bono Legal Services. With private attorneys out of financial reach for a large segment of our community, Charleston Pro Bono provides free legal services to overcome legal barriers, prevent injustice, and secure basic needs such as food and shelter for those in our community who need it most. Georgetown University Law Center's Justice Lab at the Institute for Technology, Law, and Policy focuses on closing the gap between the law and technology by training students, educating policymakers, and informing the public about key challenges and opportunities that arise at the intersection of law and technology. They work to reduce barriers to justice by supporting innovative projects like this one, and they're the project sponsor for the South Carolina Justice Navigators Network. And LegalLink is a California-based nonprofit whose mission is to remove legal barriers that prolong poverty by adding critically needed capacity to the legal ecosystem. They embed legal navigation support in community-based settings by training partners to act as navigators for the clients that they serve. LegalLink has trained over 1,000 allied professionals in legal navigation to date. Their network of navigators help to surface unmet legal needs, identify legal issues, and access legal protections. And as I mentioned earlier, we are really grateful to work closely with the South Carolina Access to Justice Commission, whose commitment to increasing access to justice through education, resources, research, and advocacy aligns with the mission of SCJNN. We have many other partners who are really enthusiastic about this initiative, who I'm going to speak about later. Okay. Now, the South Carolina Justice Navigators Network trains and supports frontline client-facing staff who are not lawyers how to develop a skill called legal navigation. Briefly, the program has two components: training and follow-up support. So for the training piece, using LegalLink's unique legal first aid curriculum, we train allied professionals at community-based organizations to feel confident in surfacing and identifying legal issues, connecting clients to timely legal resources, and delivering key navigation support. Presently, trainings are offered to organizations in the Charleston Tri-County area, but we're planning to expand to the rest of South Carolina. Each training session is co-taught by myself as lead trainer and one of 4 attorneys, 2 of whom are with Charleston Legal Access and 2 of whom are with Charleston Pro Bono Legal Services. We also provide follow-up support to the folks that we train. Once someone completes the legal first aid training and has been certified as a legal navigator, they can contact us for any questions that might arise with their clients' legal issues and for recommendations as to how to best provide legal navigation support to that client. And I'm going to explain more about what we mean by legal first aid and what community navigators do. But I want to take a moment to talk about why it was so important to bring this program to South Carolina. Okay. All right, what you see here is the problem that the legal first aid training sets out to address. This is the real and well-earned lack of trust in the legal system. So these are pictures from trainings that SCJNN has conducted since April. We asked participants to pick one word that first comes to mind when they think of the legal system. And at each training, we see the same or similar words: unfair, broken, complicated, cumbersome, overwhelming. Maybe you've experienced the legal system yourself in this way. This is the baseline that we have to recognize in order to make any real progress. Okay. In addition, people don't see the law as a solution for their justice problems, even if they recognize them as legal. In fact, 8 out of 10 people don't seek out help on legal issues outside of their immediate social network. Okay, all these factors together Add up to 92% of low-income Americans do not get any or enough legal help with their substantial civil legal problems. So here's a question for you, and we also ask this question of folks who are participating in the legal first aid trainings as well, to get them to really think about what the need looks like out there. So I would like for you all to give a moment to kind of make a guess here. How many private, meaning not free, attorneys are available to how many people who have the ability to pay for one across the US overall? These are people who are not low income and can't afford to pay out of pocket for a private attorney. So, you know, just an example might be, you know, one attorney for every 6 people, which that's totally the wrong answer, but I'm just giving an example of that, looking for a ratio. So if you think of a number, I'm going to tell you what the facts are. So presently, there is available one private lawyer for every 244 people. All right, and then the follow-up question is, across the US, how many free legal aid lawyers, i.e. South Carolina Legal Services and the lawyers that they have available for folks who qualify, how many free legal aid lawyers are available for people who are low income? What do you think? Same idea with a ratio. Okay, so here's the startling truth, which is, for people who are low income, there is one legal aid lawyer for every 8,002 individuals. So this really illustrates what is referred to as the justice gap, which is massive, which shows that there are not enough free legal aid attorneys to meet the need. I need to just kind of continue on that track, which is that in our home state of South Carolina, over 1/3 of South Carolinians qualify for free legal services. However, South Carolina Legal Services, who is our state's largest provider of free legal aid and my host today, only has the resources to employ an average of one attorney for every 21,000 South Carolina citizens who are eligible for their services. And on top of that, only 20% of legal issues are properly identified as legal. So we're also missing a lot of legal issues that receive little to no help. Recent studies show that in South Carolina, over 92% of defendants in eviction, foreclosure, and debt collection cases are not represented by attorneys. The reality is that folks really need legal help, but there just aren't enough legal aid lawyers to meet the need. And so here we come to community legal navigation. What if it's not just about lawyers? We now know that research shows that what people need isn't always a lawyer, but a trusted person with an ability to navigate procedures and rules. Caseworkers or folks embedded in community organizations, they're already trusted people in the community. The legal first aid training adds some key legal skills, the ability to navigate the legal system to their professional toolboxes. So with the proper training and support, they can develop the skills necessary to support someone who is experiencing a life-impacting legal issue. Community Navigator programs help to build legal literacy and improve the ability to identify, understand, and respond to legal issues. Community legal navigation work is more than just giving referrals. This is supporting clients to identify legal issues and engage with the legal system, and of course, seek out relevant and timely resources and help when available. This is a visualization to help better understand where community legal navigators fit within the existing legal ecosystem. At the top, we have families experiencing legal problems. The next layer of support under that are the frontline helpers who see those issues first, usually before any attorney or legal professional may learn of them. They're the most proximate to their clients, and they're already an integral part of the legal ecosystem. Next, we have organizations that are working to expand this system and support community members like LegalLink and our Justice Navigators network. Finally, last but not least, we have lawyers. Of course, there are some people who absolutely require legal representation. They need attorneys to help solve their legal problems, but not every person who needs a lawyer will get a lawyer, as you saw earlier, and not every legal issue requires a lawyer's help. The goal is not to get to the lawyers. The goal is to strengthen and support the entire ecosystem, identify legal problems as early as possible, resolve them as quickly as possible before they become bigger barriers to stability, and make timely, accurate referrals to legal resources, including attorneys, as often as possible. Okay. Why legal first aid? Why this approach? So the analogy often used by LegalLink is that, much like medical first aid, if you see someone fall over on the sidewalk while you're walking by, one wouldn't be expected to perform surgery, but we do want to know what we as non-medical professionals can do in that moment. In the legal world, it's the same. Imagine if everyone who received CPR training also received legal first aid training. So generally speaking, legal first aid is an approach that can be used when a client or community member presents with a legal issue. It's also a person who is in a position of trust or maybe the only one around. They can then be able to make a real difference in helping a person. The legal first aid training gives a helpful structure on how to approach legal issues, a deeper understanding of the top legal issues affecting low-income South Carolinians, and when and where to support the community to find help. We go beyond referrals and focus on what it means to be a navigator to the clients served. At the end of the training, participants have a deeper understanding of the impacts of the access to justice gap. They're better able to identify legal issues that clients face, and they can connect clients to timely and relevant tools and resources and confidently apply the legal first aid method. We also provide free follow-up support to the folks we train to make sure that they have the resources and information needed to support clients as they navigate through the legal system. Okay, what is the legal first aid method? So AID, or AID, is the acronym that we use to explain the steps, and I'm going to touch on each one very briefly. So A is ask the basics. So when you're trying to understand a legal issue, what you're asking is a little different from what you may ordinarily guess. And this sort of information gathering is critical. I is for investigate, where we're teaching navigators how to review the paperwork or documents that the client has with them and how to ask if they have more. And D, and also under investigate, this is where the navigator figures out how to become oriented to where they are in the client's support system. And they can also research and gather additional documents that might help that client. And then the D is deliver support. And what does that look like? So, right, in addition to all the things that social service providers already do, like case management, connecting clients to community resources, being an advocate, being a mentor, those sorts of things, their role as a non-lawyer navigator is to help community members identify when their life problems have a legal component to them. Their role is also to assist with follow-up work, such as paper and document collection and logistics around follow-through on next steps. They can also provide non-legal accompaniment, like being present at a client's hearing at the client's request for moral support. Help them to create a timeline of events with the client, connect them to legal support like referrals or self-help resources like South Carolina Legal Services has available, and can also help to provide information and direct clients to online self-help resources. So there's numerous online tools that clients and advocates can use to find information and help move an issue forward. We're lucky to have partnered with the amazing folks at South Carolina's Access to Justice Commission to use their free online, easy to use South Carolina Legal Resource Finder, and we've tailored our training to this tool, and we've trained the tool to the training. We've adapted it so that the two are really very symbiotic, and what folks learn in the training is kind of, they can follow along through the tool in order to get to the resources that they're looking for a client. Navigators become really comfortable with using that tool to guide their clients to resources. So there's already so much support provided within the work that navigators are already doing, but we just give additional information and technological tools to layer into that work. Okay. As we are teaching legal navigation, we want folks to understand what legal advice is so that they're very clear on how to avoid giving it. There's so much rich, meaningful, necessary support that they can and do give to the community that's well within their role. Navigators learn examples of the types of actions that fall into the different levels of the pyramid that you see here. And we engage them in activities to help them retain the information that we've taught them. So I'm going to describe each one of these levels briefly in a similar way that we explain it to navigators. However, with navigators, we go into much more detail and there's a lot more opportunity for discussion. First, there's this green go zone that you see at the bottom. This is where a navigator can give out referrals and printed information that's well within a navigator's role. In this safe zone, they can provide very helpful navigation support like follow-up, gathering documentation, the non-legal accompaniment, etc. Okay, and then in the next level, this yellow proceed with caution includes general accurate information provided to clients. It might include information about a legal process or general rules, just not about the client's specific case. So just, want to be mindful as you are providing information that is general and accurate. And then here at the top, you see the smallest section is this red legal advice where a hard stop absolutely needs to happen. This includes if someone were to point out the merits or shortfalls of a person's case, or try to render a judgment call on what an individual should do about their case. These are things that are absolutely inappropriate for a navigator to do. As you can see, the vast majority of the support that a navigator can offer falls in that bottom green tier. So our goal is to encourage and empower non-lawyers to support their clients using accessible legal information. All right. So it can be really helpful to get grounded in terms of what community navigation actually looks like in real life. So I'm going to talk you through some examples of how LegalLink trained navigators in California have helped their clients. So you see, I can just give two, but there are many. A housing example would be a navigator spotted the legal issue, which was a client receiving an eviction notice, and immediately connected the client to legal counsel. The navigator supported the client with communicating with the attorney. The attorney represented the client in court, and the client received more time to move out, and the eviction didn't stay on the client's record. So if the navigator hadn't have acted, think about where that client may have ended up, or what would have happened with that eviction as an unrepresented individual. And then an example on the criminal side, a navigator recognized that a client's prior conviction was causing them to feel anxiety in their job search. The navigator worked with their client to figure out which county the prior conviction was in and seek record cleaning legal support in that county. The navigator also found written information from a re-entry nonprofit that helped the client understand their rights, including when potential employers might see their prior convictions. So as you can see, this is really powerful support, and it's just incredibly valuable help offered to clients in a real way. So here are the organizations in the Tri-County that we've partnered with to bring legal first aid to South Carolina. Again, Justice Navigators are folks who are already in this unique position due to their role within an organization, providing social service support to clients. With their additional training, they're empowered to support those clients with navigating legal challenges with a new skill set and resources. We've hosted 3 legal first aid trainings since mid-April, and we've trained 46 navigators thus far. We have another 5 trainings scheduled between now and October, and we're anticipating training an additional 150 navigators. Our vision is to make this a statewide initiative, especially moving into areas of the state with much fewer legal resources than the Charleston Tri-County area has. And we're seeking partnerships to make this happen. So if you have thoughts or ideas, our ears are very open. Okay, I hope that this gave you a brief sense of what the South Carolina Justice Navigators Network is all about. If you're interested in learning more, please visit our website, which is right there. And I'm welcome to take any questions that you may have at this time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Deb. That's a great thing you guys are doing. A question about referrals. When I know you said that sometimes it's obviously immediately that somebody is going to actually need to have a lawyer, and so is that just to nonprofits like South Carolina Legal Services, Charleston Legal Access, and Charleston Pro Bono, or do you also refer like to private attorneys?
So it depends on the person's circumstances and obviously their ability to afford a private attorney. There are some areas where there's effectively no free legal help available. One example is the immigration sphere. The one organization that has the lowest cost attorneys is Catholic Charities, which we just happen to know about. However, we also explain to navigators that sometimes if a person is a victim of a crime, there may be resources available to them. So regardless of whether or not they may be able to afford a private attorney or not. So one of the outcome and referrals that populates through that legal resource finder tool are that private attorneys may be available through the South Carolina Bar Lawyer Referral Service.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to do that.
So that does come, if for example, you are indicating in there that a person's income is X and they actually have the income to be able to afford it, then that is one of the resources that would populate.
Yeah, that's great. And boy, that legal resource finder that Access to Justice Commission has is so great, and I can see why that's a great tool for y'all.
Yes, and what's also very nice is that the feedback that we've gotten from the navigators that we've trained, because we put them through little fun scavenger hunts to try to seek out a particular resource, so they get lots of opportunities to work through using it as a group and as individuals, and everybody is like, oh, this is just really easy to use. I'm gonna bookmark this on my desktop, so I'm very pleased.
Yeah, and so you were talking about you have the pyramid there with, here's where you stop, so you don't give legal advice if you're a navigator, which I know is so important in what you guys are doing, because you don't want to step over that line of the unauthorized practice of law, which is a gray area, it seems like, to me anyway, in South Carolina. And so you have to, I know, be very careful. But I'm curious about so did you say that the navigators can actually go to court with people, just like as moral support, kind of, I guess?
Moral support, I mean, that's pretty much their role in that. And again, this because we have reinforced to them that you can't direct folks as to what they should do at all. But if a client is saying, look, I have this eviction hearing coming up and I'm really nervous about it,
Right.
or you know, you know, and you're one of the few people that I've spoken to about this situation. Would you be willing to come with me?
Right.
They can absolutely do that.
Yeah, it's kind of like when someone's going, to a shelter and maybe they're going to court for an order of protection, and a caseworker or someone from the shelter goes to court with them, but they can't be their lawyer, but they can kind of be there to hold their hand and give moral support and stuff like that.
Yes.
So I think that's it's great. I always feel like one of the things that we can do as lawyers anyway, and I say this to pro bono lawyers all the time, that you don't necessarily have to know everything about the particular kind of case that you're helping someone with, but sometimes they just need a person who's with them in court so that they don't, kind of miss those opportunities that they might have to be successful in court. And so I think the same, kind of holds true a little bit with what navigators can do. But obviously, big difference between, the practice of law versus just being a navigator to help you navigate all of um, the whole system and all. And I thought that was just a personal comment here. I thought it was really interesting, the list that you were showing of what people think about the legal system, because I think that's it's really true. And lots of times people just don't know what to do. They don't know what resources are available. And those of us who are nonprofits like South Carolina Legal Services, Charleston Legal Access, Charleston Pro Bono, and others, it's hard to, I guess, make sure that everybody out there, as you so aptly pointed out, there's so many people that need a lawyer and maybe aren't getting one. And I think that's a big importance of the Legal Resource Finder that the Access to Justice Commission created, because that does, coupled with what your navigators are doing, helping people to find those resources. And it really, it's some just great advertising for what all of us do out here in the nonprofit law firm world. So I
Yes.
think it's a really great resource that they have come up with. And I
Yes.
think the only other thing that comes to mind is we're talking about, like, or going to court for an order of protection, and the person from the shelter comes with you and stuff like that. And I'm sure y'all run into this, and it sounds like it's definitely part of your training that you have to make sure that the client or the self-represented person doesn't kind of get that mistaken feeling that the navigator is somehow their representative or their attorney. And I know that's a tough one, but it sounds like your materials that you have are definitely focused on making sure that that is fully disclosed and reiterated throughout the process. So that's about all you can do, to make sure.
Well, and the activities that we have the navigators participate in are very interactive, particularly around this issue, because we really want for folks to feel confident upon the completion of all the training that they know exactly where that line is. If they even begin to feel like, they're kind of headed in that direction, they know where that bright line is. But that's one of the things that we make so clear to them, is that, you should not, misrepresent yourself as a legal representative or this person's attorney. And you also need to be mindful, if the client should mistakenly refer to you as such, you need to make sure to say, no, that is not what my role is. I'm absolutely not. So obviously an error would be if you didn't address that, if the client
Right.
were making that mistake. But we, just like what you're describing, basically we give them applied scenarios, like, oh, the navigator does this, and that, tells the client to do X, Y, and Z, advising them that if they do this, and then the navigators have to identify which area, whether it's red, yellow, or green, and then talk about why that is. And so it's a lot of peer support to get to the correct answers, in addition to what we've already communicated to them.
Yeah, and something that comes to my mind that I bet your navigators do run into, sometimes we have clients come in all the time who have spoken with some random person, whether it's a family member or friend or somebody at work, who's told them they have a great case, and they come to us and, say, oh, well, I've got this great case. And, I talked to someone about it, and they told me it was a great case. I'm like, well, what lawyer did you talk to about that? And so I'm sure that that's something that your navigators have to be, definitely careful about, telling people, oh, yeah, you've got a good defense or something like that, because with the training, they may feel like they know that, but they got to be so careful about not saying that or letting the person that they're talking to, perceive that, I guess. So that's tough, but sounds like some good training to prevent those kind of things from happening.
Yes.
That's great. We'll see if there's any other questions here.
And I'll add just lastly what you were saying about the slide around the one word describing the legal system. So we have the navigators speak to that from their own perspective. What is your one word? And then they talk amongst themselves about kind of how they came to that. But then we also have them think about, well, what do you think your clients would say if you were to ask them their one word? And so considering everything that is going on with a client at that time, who are already coming to you with so many basic needs, challenges, and emotional things going on, and then introduce the legal system into that, what kind of words do you think that they would come up with? Just for them to be able to really understand how challenging it is and what people bring when even thinking about the legal system.
Right. Yeah. And, just any way that people can learn about their legal rights and get that access to justice is just so important. Clearly, I mean, as many of us know, but, our viewers know now too, the numbers of people that are needing help out there. It's great to have some folks who are steering them in the right direction. So it's great to know about, and we really appreciate you being with us today. It looks like there are not any other questions. I want to thank you very much for joining us. Thanks. Here's your contact information. So anybody that wants to know more can find out from you, and I know you're very accessible, and so I definitely encourage people. I know it sounds like you've got a busy schedule doing trainings, but I'm sure there will come a time when you're ready to train some more folks. So I'm sure some of the groups here in South Carolina in other areas besides Charleston may want to reach out to you. So thanks for providing that information. And then if anyone wants to apply for South Carolina Legal Services, we can show you our information. And of course, we always have that QR code that you can scan and contact us to learn more about what we're doing here at South Carolina Legal Services and the services that we provide. We have a lot of great educational resources, not just on Level Up Law, which is definitely a good educational resource. I do encourage everyone out there to check out our YouTube channel, where we post all these episodes of Level Up Law. And that YouTube handle and all of our other social media handles are here. And now we're on TikTok. Check it out, because it seems to be a place where a lot of people are trending towards these days, and we get a lot of views and subscribers there, doing things like learn the law in 60 seconds about some particular topic and things like that. So it's a great way to get a little bit of knowledge about a particular topic. So I encourage everybody to go there. And also, especially if you're watching this on the replay, definitely share this episode out with anyone who you think might find it helpful. We always want people to get the good information that we bring to you here on Level Up Law. So, and also take a moment right now, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel or any of our other social media, go ahead and do that now. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you're going to get a notification if you sign up for the notifications every time we post a video on YouTube. Now, we're always posting every week our Level Up Law episodes, but we post other videos too. So just invite our audience to check that out. And we do appreciate the audience being here, whether it's live or on the replay on YouTube. We really appreciate the support of the public in doing what we do here. And again, Deborah Friel-Myhall with the South Carolina Justice Navigators Network, thanks so much for being with us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to bring us this information.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are very welcome, and I want to tell our viewers to be sure and tune in next week for another live episode of Level Up Law on Tuesday at noon. That'll be the day after Juneteenth, and we'll have a special episode for you on that day. And thanks again, everyone, for tuning in, whether you're live or on the replay. We appreciate you being here. That concludes today's webinar. Take care, everybody.